Hello.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Hari. Good afternoon.
Hi, ma'am. How are you doing?
Very good. Very good. Should we wait for just another 2 to 3 minutes, Sanjayan and Hari?
Sure,
Yeah,
sure.
no problem.
Yeah.
No problem.
Because the more people come, it's beneficial to them. Because we have got about 500 registrations for the
No problem.
series. Yeah.
Happy to wait. No problem.
Yeah. So we'll just Surya, can we just take about 3-4 minutes, add
Yeah,
a
ma'am.
lot of people, and then
Yes,
we'll
ma'am.
start. Yeah.
Works.
Okay.
Yes. all right.
Okay. Yeah.
So, ma'am, mostly the demography here is mostly class 12 students, or there are undergrads as well? You're on mute. You're on mute.
We are planning to get people from the TY of different colleges also, because we have about 2 masters now and we are planning to start 2 more.
Right.
So there are some formalities in the state university which we will have to abide by. But for that, we need the TY students also to be engaging.
Right.
You know, you realize now that the lockdown has made kids very, very insecure, very some of them are depressed, some of them are lost, some of them are irritated, some of them are just going crazy. So I think somewhere I feel a session per day one should keep, irrespective of whatever it is. A couple of hours which keeps them little engaged, and yet I don't say gyan prapt karna hai, but at least you enjoy the session and you know a little more about that area. I think this should be a continuous process, not only these 3 days. Some other department can do something interesting and keep them busy, because going forward you should know everything, if not only media. You should know what's happening in humanities, what's happening in social sciences. So let's hope that the kids understand that, at least at the TY level, because you may not like to do a post graduation in English literature, you may not like to do it in psychology, but you should first know which are your areas which are feasible, which you are qualified for. And stepping out of the country looks a little difficult right now. So people who have plans to study abroad, and very subtly I've been told that a lot of universities have very clearly tried to keep those applications aside which are from other countries, especially Asian.
Okay.
I don't know. It's a little worrying. I think we should start, because our session will get delayed because of all this, isn't it?
Okay. Hi, Hari. Would you want to go first, or?
Whatever
Gauri.
you say, I'm happy either way.
I can see Gauri. Hi, Gauri. How are you? Unmute her, Surya.
I can't see her.
Hello. Hello.
Hi, Gauri.
Hi.
Hello, ma'am.
Hi, how are
Good
you?
afternoon. I'm good. I missed the session yesterday, so I made sure I'll attend the one today.
Where are you? You're in the terrace or something?
Sorry?
You're in the terrace or something? You're outdoors somewhere?
No, I'm in my room. Maybe there's
it looks
How are you,
very lighted and very
I'm good.
busy.
I'm good. Yes.
So, how many people are there now, Surya?
There are 183 participants. So a couple of them are joining.
So
I think we can
start because our schedule will get delayed further. So, where have Srinivas and this one joined, Sudha ma'am? Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
The tech boss is there. Great. So anyway, should we start, Surya, then?
Yes, ma'am.
So before you formally introduce our speakers to the audience, I think I don't think principal has joined us, has she?
No, ma'am.
Okay. So let me do the honors of welcoming everybody on behalf of KC College. We at the Department of Mass Media have been trying to do a lot of things for the last 19 years. We complete 20 years this year as a department. We will be doing many more sessions like this, but we have started with this alumni series. Yesterday, we finished with advertising and with public relations. Today, we are going to understand how the areas, the niche areas in which Hari and Sanchayan, who have studied with us once upon a time BMM, are going to speak to you about it. So over to you, Surya, if you could introduce Hari, and then you could ask Hari to speak, and then Sanchayan will follow Hari. And welcome everybody. We'll keep the room open for people to join, because I know some of us have problems with internet, some of us have problems with getting the house in place and coming to this session. So we request all of you to join, all of us. Tell your friends to join as soon as possible. Yeah, thank you, Surya.
Yes, thank you so much, ma'am. As you all are aware, this series is a platform to connect our alumni and our current and prospective students so that they can learn from the experience of the alumni in their respective fields. And this can be called as kind of the USP of our department, that we have kept this connect going. So taking this connect forward, I again formally welcome everybody to the second day of our series. Our first session is about opportunities in media, public policy, international relations. Our first speaker of the day is Mr. Hari Seshashai. Hari is a Latin America analyst specializing in India-Latin America relations. He's currently working as a trade advisor for Pro Colombia, which is a part of Ministry of Commerce, Government of Colombia. He has an MA in Latin American Studies from Stanford University and a Bachelor in Mass Media from our own college. Hari has previously worked as a researcher with Gateway House, a Mumbai-based foreign policy think tank. He has also led the Latin America desk at the Confederation of Indian Industry. I am sure Hari's insights and experiences will definitely help our students learn a lot. Over to you, Hari. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Surya, for that introduction. Thanks a lot, Manjula ma'am, for organizing this. I think it's a very good initiative. You should keep doing it every year. It gives a good practical exposure to your students. So thank you. I think I'll just start sharing my screen, right? Just a second. Okay, can you see the presentation?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, excellent. So, well, welcome everyone. I think there are about 200 people here. I'm guessing most of you are either in your BMM or a little bit before that. I've been told, even from the 11th and 12th standard as well. I think it's a little early in your life right now to start thinking exactly about what you want to do in life 20 years from now, 10 years from now, even 5 years from now. When I was in your position in either the 11th and 12th, or even when I was in BMM, I wasn't sure exactly what I wanted to do. And that's perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with that. To give you an idea of, I'm going to talk a little bit about my own experience and then give some suggestions on, what I think you could do in terms of your career. So I interviewed for KC College in 2005, and at the interview, someone asked me why I want to do BMM, and my answer was that I want to become a journalist. And they asked me if I have anything in mind, and to be frank, I hadn't even thought of it by then. So my immediate answer was that I'll be a sports journalist, and I have not become a sports journalist in any way. But what I have done is I have started using one skill and building it up as much as I can. And that skill for me is writing. So I have been writing everything from articles in journals to newspapers to book chapters, so I've basically found one skill that I'm good at and that I also like, that I enjoy. So I very highly suggest that you do the same as well. Find something that you like doing and that you're good at, and cultivate it as much as you can. So what you can see here is my author page at the Indian Express. So I've written a couple of op-eds, opinion pieces for them. I've written for Business Standard, a few other newspapers in Latin America, in Colombia, in Peru, in Brazil, in the US. Um, so the first thing I'd like to start with is it's good to know what you like doing and to cultivate that. Yeah. Okay. So earlier I had sent a presentation to Casey with a photo of my CV. I thought, that's a little too boring. So I thought I'll just put this over here. This has basically been my career trajectory over the years. Um, and actually, one thing that doesn't appear here, which doesn't appear in your CV, is what you do in school. In my school, I didn't really do anything. I spent most of my school days playing video games. I used to play a lot of Counter-Strike. I used to play a lot of sports with my friends. I didn't have any real extracurricular experience in school. I'm not saying that you shouldn't have it, but it's not as important as a lot of people make it out to be. But I actually learned a lot of strategy, learned a lot of how to work in teams during my school days and my college days, just spending a lot of time with friends. Um, from KC College, I spent 2 years in Peru. I lived in Peru. It's a country in South America, for those who don't know. Um, I learned Spanish over there, and right now I work with the Colombian government, and most of my job is in Spanish, and I'm fluent in the language. So learning a foreign language really helps. Besides that, I was completely out of my comfort zone. I was not with any friends in that country. It was a different language, a different culture. No one from my family or friends that resides there. So getting out of your comfort zone uh, automatically makes you learn a lot. And I highly advise that you guys all at some point, earlier rather than later in your lives, get out of your comfort zone. You don't have to go all the way to Peru. You can go to another city in India. That's fine. But get out of your comfort zone. So after that, I came back to India. After 2 years, I joined Gateway House, which is a foreign policy think tank in Mumbai. I was again out of my comfort zone there. I did not really know anything about foreign policy. My background had nothing to do with that. Casey did equip me with some really useful skills with journalism, which I continued to use thereafter, but mostly to do with writing. But Gateway House is a foreign policy think tank, so I didn't really have that experience. So it was really good to learn more about the region that I lived in Peru. So the region is called Latin America, which is Mexico downwards. So Mexico, Brazil, Peru, Colombia, Chile, all of those countries. And after that, I spent a year at Stanford University. I did a master's in Latin American studies over there. And this helped me basically club my practical experience with an academic experience as well. So I started building a specialization in Latin American studies. And more than anything else, the reason why I did this is because I had a lot of friends in Peru. I had a lot of knowledge of, the history and the people in the region. And I found out that India doesn't do as much with this region as it does with, let's say, Europe or Africa or Southeast Asia, or even the US. And I came back to India after Stanford, and I started working with CII. That's the Confederation of Indian Industry. And I was leading their Latin America desk. So there I worked with a lot of business. It's a business association. So I worked with a lot of companies. I had to work with a lot of the Indian embassies in Latin America, with the Latin American ambassadors and the missions in Delhi. So the experience was completely different from what I had before that. And I also spent, during my time at CII, a couple of weeks in Colombia and in Peru teaching MBA students on India's place in the world and also how India does business with Asia. And now, since the past 3 years, I've been working with Pro Colombia. Pro Colombia is part of the is basically the trade and investment promotion agency of the government of Colombia. So I represent the Colombian government in India, and my job is to increase their exports to India. Yeah. So now getting down to you guys, to all of you, I have just a few suggestions that I'd like to make. To begin with, what would you like to do in life? This is not a very easy question to answer, and many times people ask you this question as if it is an easy one, as if you just have an immediate answer for it. Even now, I don't know exactly what I want to do in my life, like let's say 10, 15 years from now. So don't rush it. Take your time learning exactly what you want to do and what you're good at. And equally important is to know what you do not like to do. Don't spend too much time in a job or in a career that you don't think is good for you. So for instance, I joined Hindustan Times immediately after coming back. That wasn't even on the list I showed you earlier. I joined Hindustan Times for about 2 months, and I didn't like the job there. I wanted to write about international politics. I wanted to write about what was happening in the world. I wanted to be an international correspondent, but I was told that HT that that's not something you can do right now. You'll have to wait at least another 8 to 10 years before you start doing something like that. So I immediately switched from there to Gateway House. So don't spend too much time doing things that you don't want to do, that you don't like. So, and come to terms with that. It's fine if you don't like something. You don't have to do it for the rest of your life. And as I said earlier, live independently, live out of your comfort zone. If all of you are, if many of you are not from Bombay, from Mumbai, go back to the city that you came from to take the knowledge that you have gained from here, or go to another city altogether, or to another country as well. I believe that only when you learn to live independently and out of your comfort zone can you really start to think for yourself. Yeah. Learn and practice a skill. As I said, for me, it was writing. Whatever it is for you, find out what you like and keep practicing it. There are always going to be a million other people like you. So the only way you're going to be competitive enough is if you keep practicing something that you like. Yeah. Broaden your horizon of media. Media, when I studied at KC College, we had only two opportunities. We had either journalism or advertising. Right now, that was in 2005. Right now, the whole media landscape has expanded a lot. It's completely different, and there are so many opportunities all over the country. India is always going to be one of the leading countries in the whole world for media and new media, because of the sheer size and reach that any organization can have. Tomorrow, you can start a website and get, let's say, 500,000 visitors in 1 month. Yeah, not many other people in other countries have that option. Yeah, most countries in the world don't even have a population of about 20 million people. We have a population of 1.4 billion. Yeah. So lastly, I would like to say, don't kill yourself with your work. I worked a lot when I was, let's say 5 years after I graduated. I worked practically about 14, 15 hours a day. Right now, I don't work more than, let's say, 6 hours a day maximum. And it's very important to have a good work-life balance. At the end of the day, you will be remembered for what you do, but you yourself will remember your life more than just your work. Yeah. Okay, that's about it. And if you have any questions, those are my contacts.
Thank you so much, Hari, for that crisp and very, very informative and inspirational session. I am sure looking at your career graph, our students must have, got that kick of achieving things that they really want to achieve. We will take question and answers towards the end of the second session for both the first and the second speaker, if that works. Now,
sure.
Now I would like to introduce our second speaker of first session, Mr. Sanchayan Bhattacharjee. Sanchayan is currently working with the Reliance Foundation as an assistant manager. He has played an instrumental role in conceptualizing and organizing events like Youth Manifesto, Agendas, Challenges and Solutions. This was a conference in collaboration with Youth Ki Awaaz and Twitter. Another program, he played an instrumental role in conceptualizing its Skill India way forward in higher education, which was in collaboration with TISS and Government of Maharashtra, and Science Communication for New India in collaboration with IIT Bombay. He is a regular contributor to a very well-known Observer Research Foundation ORF website on issues related to education and skill development. He has previously also worked with giants like Z Media and ORF. I welcome Sanchayan on behalf of the Department of Mass Media, and I hand over the floor to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Surya, for that introduction. I think I should have gone first because Hari said a lot of things I wanted to say. Now I have to figure out what to fill in that space. So I think Manjula ma'am also must have noticed the backgrounds are quite similar. I mean, in a lot of ways. So to the listeners, the similarity is that, I mean, I was not sure of what to do either for the longest time. So Hari mentioned in his presentation that you need to figure out what you're good at and you need to focus with like whatever you're good in. The thing with me, and I'm sure that a lot of people in the audience might resonate, is that for the longest time in my career, student life and career, I did not know what I was good at. I wasn't sure of it. Like there were things I was more than average, but I wasn't sure what is this one thing that I'm good at and I want to do. So for students who are in class 11, 12, I mean, you know, when I was in class 11, 12, I had taken my science. So I was a science student then. And the path was set as all my cousins have done engineering in my family, and I was supposed to do engineering as well. Until I think in class 12, I finally kind of got the courage to at least tell my parents that this is not something I want to do. I mean, I probably won't fail. I'll probably get decent grades and I'll probably move on and do something in life, but it's not something I want to be doing. I don't enjoy studying. Like it took me till 12th standard boards, I think, to convince them that I do not want to be studying just for marks, because that is, I think, what I was doing till then. So that's where the BMM decision happened. But since it was a very last moment decision, what happened is I focused more on my entrance exams for engineering than my class 12th. So when my class 12 results came in, I did not get a percentage which was good enough for KC College. Like it was short by, I think, 1.5% or something like that, but I did not get admission in KC. So my first year of BMM was actually in St. Andrews. But I was quite clear I wanted to go to KC because of the kind of exposure. And I'll come to the benefits of BMM in a bit. But I was quite clear I wanted to go. And thankfully, things then worked out. And in the second year, Manjula ma'am was kind enough to like let me come in and join the class, which is not a very common thing, like in this whole undergrad situation in our country. So I could change in the second year. And then, of course, I've been in KC for my graduation as well as my post-graduation in MACJ. So what I'm trying to say is that sometimes, you know, things just do not work the way you expect it to, but sometimes they still have a habit of falling into place when you least expect it to. So just when things are not going your way, just give it some time. Maybe it will soon enough. Just stay on what you have decided, because these decisions sometimes change your life. Sometimes they backfire and you have to take ownership of that as well. Okay, I'm going to now quickly share my screen. Just like a few slides, which I've kept it as generic as I can because I didn't want to get into specifics of policy making. Can everyone see my screen?
Yeah.
So my BMM experience, I think the one thing I always take away from BMM and MACJ, and for students who decide to go through this path, the kind of exposure you get to different subjects, different people, different organizations is immense. It is much wider than what I have seen my friends get in their respective courses. Yes, probably the flip side of it is you will not get too much depth in one particular subject, but you will get exposure to a lot of different things. It will widen your perspectives a lot more than what you have right now. I can just give a very quick example. I actually had a professor Mr. Aman Quatra, and Manjula ma'am probably will know how much we all liked his lectures. So he asked us to write an essay, and I had to write an essay on the impact of media coverage on the Iraq War in 2003. That was my topic. And I wrote, like, I thought I did a very good job with the essay, and I thought like it's just a brilliant essay. And I went to him, and so this is what, second year graduation. So I didn't know a lot of things about a lot of things. So he read the entire essay and he just comes back to me and he's like, Sanchayan, and he's this very polite, mild-mannered professor, okay? And very politely, he's like, Sanchayan, this is a good blog post, but I didn't ask for your opinion. I asked for a well-researched essay. So why have you given me only your opinion with no backing up? To be honest, I didn't understand what he said because I was quite clueless on how to do these things. So then he kind of took 2-3 hours after his lecture just to explain the whole concept of how you reference, how you look at academic journals, how you look at a lot of secondary literature. Do you have to conduct some primary surveys as well? And then how you construct an entire essay, which was a very, very new thing for me. I did not know about this till then. The reason I mention this is that later on in my career, this whole grounding helped me so much because, see, like Hari mentioned, even I started after my academic courses, I started with being a journalist for DNA, which was under Z Media. And I was a journalist there for less than 14 months. Because what happened to Hari in 2 months happened to me in 14 months. Like I kind of stuck around a little longer. He's right. Do not stick around that long if you think something is not working. It wasn't working for me. Simply because I figured immediately after the first 5-6 months that while I'm doing a lot of journalism and a lot of stories, a lot of education and community stories, I'm really not focusing on anything else, like focusing on anything specific. Like I know a little bit about a lot of things, but this little bit is only going to take me so much, like so ahead in my career. If I want to go more ahead than this, I have to have some in-depth knowledge about something. It's not going to work otherwise. And I'll be very honest, since you guys are listening in, I mean, you should know the realities also, especially in print media in India right now, even if it's English, for an entry-level journalist, and at least for the first 5-6 years till you're working, even more than that now, the pay is not great. And I will not lie, that was one factor which also made me shift from journalism. And what happened is then I also switched to a think tank like Hari has. So I went to Observer Research Foundation. So Observer Research Foundation is also, I know think tank. So this think tank again is a very BMM gift to me. Till BMM, I had no idea what a think tank was. I didn't know what their role was supposed to be. So I'll try and explain it as simply as I can and as briefly as I can. So what happens is, the government works in different public policy sectors, right? So the government has policies in education, they have policies in housing, energy, a lot of different sectors, transport. So it's not always possible. The government does not always have the bandwidth or the manpower or the resources to always do a lot of in-depth research in every sector and come up with credible policy alternatives for the country, for the state, city, country, everything. So that's where places like Observer Research Foundation, I mean, he mentioned Gateway House. So foreign policy also is one of the sectors there. That's where we chip in with our recommendations, which is on the basis of a lot of hardcore research that happens. And we try and advise the government on what can be done in certain policy sectors. I mean, this is a very simplified way to explain this. There is a lot more that goes on between these lines here, but I'll leave that for another time. So then I went to ORF and I kind of decided to do a lot of research in the education policy sector. This is where my diagram actually comes in. So I think this is something that I would want all of you to, as much as possible, follow, no matter what you are doing, academically, professionally, whatever. I'll give a small anecdote, which I think should be relatable. So for one of our research projects, we once went to Gadchiroli, because Gadchiroli is a tribal district in Maharashtra. It's on the border of Maharashtra and Chhattisgarh. So we went there and we wanted to do like a preliminary survey of 3-4 villages and understand how many people have done any sort of postgraduate studies here. Or is there even anyone who's done postgraduate studies? Because our project was to actually build a blueprint for a university there. So we wanted to have some understanding of what the audience is here. So the Gram Panchayats helped us and we kind of figured that there were around 16 people who had done their post-graduation. We were quite impressed because we didn't expect so many in that area to have done postgraduate studies. The interesting thing was all of them had done their post-graduation in history. Now, this was a little confusing to us because all of them at this point were farmers. or they were engaged in forestry. So we did not understand what was happening. So a little bit more, like we started talking to these people and we started like, okay, what happened here? Why this post-graduation in history? And we realized that these guys, the nearest university for them was Nagpur University at that point. So in the morning, from these villages, there was one bus which used to go to Nagpur University. And in the afternoon, a similar bus from Nagpur University back to the villages. And these are the only two buses that they have in a day. So if they want to take these buses and go to university and do post-graduation, the only lecture times that fit in are post-graduation in history. So it was a big revelation for us because this was not even an education problem. It was a transport problem. So the reason I'm telling you guys this is like sometimes like we are very closed to a lot of perspectives, a lot of things because we have not delved enough. So discover new things in your field, in your professional world, in your personal world, in your academic world. Observe it very carefully. Just because immediately after discovery, do not jump to making opinions. Observe it as carefully as you can, give it enough time to breathe, and then probably understand. Because once you understand, guess what? Next time your discovery is going to be even better. Like it's going to be something different. So continue this as much as possible. Make new mistakes because I cannot emphasize this enough. I mean, I can give you a very simple work anecdote here. So my first internship was in Hindustan Times. My boss was, let's just put it, was not the most mild-mannered person ever. And I used to, like, she used to yell at everyone. So I was no exception. But I was very kicked. Okay, first internship, I'm going to write stories for Hindustan Times. Big thing. Okay, my name's going to come in the newspaper. And I wrote this story, which I thought was fantastic at that point. And she kind of made me print the story on a paper. And she took the paper, she crumpled it into a ball and threw it away and just said, this is what I think of your story. And see, I'm not trying to say that this is the right approach that she took. But guess what? I mean, that is the day when I thought I cannot ever write anything. I cannot be a journalist. I thought it's just done for me. Which is why I put a point that be devastated for a while, because that really helps. Because I went to this internship thinking that I can just ace things and just write. Because see, college things used to work for me. I used to do projects, get good marks, and things were very smooth. So I expected that to happen in the work world. Guess what? It didn't. But the good part is, I actually ended up learning a lot from this boss as well, about writing, about reporting, and it holds me in good stead today. So, but the importance of doing internships should not be lost here. I mean, do them as soon as possible, because you will make mistakes there. And these mistakes, the earlier you make in life professionally, the better it is. Own your mistakes, because it's extremely important to understand what you've done. Take ownership for it, because that way you don't repeat them. Be devastated for a while. Yes, it really is important to feel bad about what you've done. It's not good to linger on them, but feel really bad about where you've gone wrong, because it helps you to keep your focus later. And then of course, just move on. It happens. Just make these mistakes as soon as you can, because trust me, once you enter the professional world, the scope for mistakes keeps diminishing. The sooner you make them, the better it is. Okay, I'll go quickly through this because I didn't know if I should probably introducing you to these concepts right now. But know that you're all of you are very privileged, because you guys are attending webinars about career prospects, and like I'm talking about what I've done. Hari's spoken about what he's done. You are getting a lot of inputs. This comes from privilege. This is a privilege that most of our country does not have. If you have a family member, if you have a parent who is paying taxes, you are part of less than 4 or 5% of the population of India, which does that. This does not mean you don't have problems. This does not mean you don't have obstacles. But understand that when you think about problems and you think about hindrances, you are talking from a position of privilege. So understand that. One advice I'd like to give everyone listening is, please know that, especially people in Bombay who are listening in, know that Bombay is probably the biggest bubble you're ever living in. That bubble has its own advantages, its own pathways to success that it will present to you, but it is not how our country runs in any way. So whatever your sector is, whether it's advertising, whether it's journalism or filmmaking or whatever, please get out of this bubble as fast as you can. I'm not saying for studying or for professional reasons, even if it's for travel, even if it's for like small vacations, just to understand how the country works in other places. Because trust me, audience for you all is going to be extremely important no matter what you do. So understanding your audience, understanding their problems is not going to happen from Bombay. It's probably one of the biggest bubbles we have in our country. It's a great bubble for us right now. And I have taken advantage of the bubble and I still am. but I also know that the country works extremely differently outside. And lastly, probably I cannot emphasize this enough. I mean, empathy, it's going to take you places. I am not saying it's going to take you places in terms of your designation increasing or your salary increasing, but managing and understanding people, for me, that is a quality that is very underrated, but extremely useful no matter what your career is. It's related to my previous point. Just because you don't find something to be a problem does not mean that somebody else may agree. So you have to see the other side, and you have to respectfully see the other side. Because once you understand perspectives from an audience which is larger than you, larger than your domain, you yourself increase your perspective and your way of viewing the world. So be very empathetic towards people. And lastly, have fun, guys. I mean, it's all good. I mean, Hari and I have all said things which you have time to understand, assimilate, and then put into action. But these are times in your life, like Hari's played video games. I played a lot of football when I was in college. And it's a great time, trust me. I mean, I would not trade it for anything else. I've loved playing football for as long as I have. So please do what you love. I mean, don't take all these things in a way that it gives you a lot of tension. Like if you enter KC College, trust me, there is a lot of things to look forward to apart from academics. You will have a lot of festivals. You can actually drive Manjula ma'am crazy like we have on a lot of things. And we have had a lot of fun doing all of it. So enjoy your life as well, because there is time to think about all these things. Start the process, but also really have fun, guys. That's it. Thank you. I'll be happy to take questions, of course.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Sanchayan. You know, your anecdotes and tiny practical advices are very, very important, which if we tell students, they don't understand. But coming from students, it definitely will be understood, you know, and taken a note of. I now open the floor to question and answer. If any student has questions, you can raise hands or you can post your question in the chat box. We will unmute you and take your question. Yes.
So as we are preparing for the question answer session, I just want to add to something that Sanchayan, you did such a fantastic job that Hari has started smiling, which I never used to see him even as a student. You know, he's been a very, very, very seriously wanting to look at life as how do you balance it. Somebody very organized, somebody who wanted to do so many things at the same time. He was full of so many ideas. And, today I found him very relaxed when Sanchayan was talking. And about Sanchayan, Hari, I must tell you that, welcome Tunali. Tunali is already there. Sanchayan was, that particular batch was one of the brightest batches of journalism that we had in the third year. And we had a very good professor at that time, Professor Saurav Datta, who is no more. I hope you all know that. Aman was a batch of 2005, who is, I'm just hunting for him on LinkedIn. Let me see if I can find him for another session. The best part about this series to everybody who is attending this program is that we are connected with our students. We do not look at them as students. They are students for us. Ex-students, alumni, people who are doing so well for themselves, so that this relates to what phase that you people are going through. I think both of them very emphatically said that enjoy life along with what you're doing. Pandemic has put all of us in this kind of lockdown. We all are going through this kind of pressure, but this will also pass. I mean, I really don't want to use these cliched words as new normal. I think I want that old normal back in the classroom with my students, where I can talk to them. This is so difficult to, I mean, I can't look at everybody, obviously. I'm looking at a screen where I can see about 8 speakers or 9 participants. So I think we will start with the question answers now, Surya.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
First question is from Amir. Amir, I'm unmuting you. Please introduce yourself and then ask your question. Yes, Amir, go ahead.
Hello, good afternoon.
Yeah.
Good afternoon, Amir. We can hear you. Yes.
Yeah.
Good afternoon. I'm Amir and I'm studying in TYBM KC College. My question is for Sinchayan sir. So the question is the first essence and satisfaction of social work is being lost with the introduction of social media?
So, Amir, social media actually has managed to help a lot in terms of public policy, to be very honest. Because we can right now solicit a lot of opinions from a lot of sectors, which was earlier not a very easy thing to do. I can give you a quick example on this. So we were part of the team drafting the national education policy for the country. So at some point, we wanted to have a national level stakeholder discussion just to get opinions from anyone and everyone who wanted to give their opinions on the national education policy, maybe school education, higher education, whatever their sector is. So it is, of course, physically a big challenge to do this because how many states can we do this in like 1 month? So what we had is similar, the kind of organization that KC has right now, like this webinar series. We had something similar on social media where we invited, did a lot of Twitter conversations, did a lot of Facebook Live, Twitter, Periscope to understand perspectives from a lot of experts and get their opinions in a much shorter time. So policy making in terms of getting perspective, social media is a big help. However, social media comes with its risks. And if you are talking about policy of social media, that is something I think we're all struggling with as a country at this point, because I don't think we know where the line is to be drawn between freedom of expression and not letting people talk whatever they want on social media and creating a lot of unrest in the society. So there is to be a line to be drawn somewhere there, which we are struggling with the society.
Thank you, Sanchayan. Next question is from Parth. Parth, I'm unmuting you. Please ask your question. Yes.
Yes, thank you, ma'am. So my question is to both of you. How did your knowledge or understanding of media help you in your careers, even outside the media discipline?
But can you introduce yourself? You're from which
sorry.
class?
I'm from SYJC, which is Junior College, KC College.
Oh, okay.
Hari, you want to take that first?
Sure.
Yeah.
So, Parth, to be frank, I think there's a whole section of people in this world who view media as a sort of bystander, and others who have better knowledge of it, who know the real, let's say, the pitfalls of the media, because it's not easy to report, to get the news out that in an objective way anymore. Today, in fact, it's nearly impossible to identify if what you're listening to is even true. And even if it is true, does it come with a bias or not? So I think in this sense, having a better understanding of media helps you understand the world better, because a lot of people tell you what's happening in the world only through media, and a lot of people find out about what's happening in the world through media. So to know exactly what those biases are and what is the process of getting this information is very important. And it has helped me at work as well to understand, what the media prioritizes as news and what they don't. So I have, like I showed my articles in Indian Express and a few other newspapers. If I did not really know what those guys would prioritize as news, whatever I pitched to them as an op-ed may not have been carried, So in that sense, it does make a big difference.
Yeah, I agree with Hari, and just to add to it, the diversity of the reading that we do. I mean, in media, you kind of have to have some knowledge about all sectors. I mean, you cannot be clueless about politics if you're covering education, for that matter, or you cannot have cannot not have an idea about economics, no matter what your sector is. You don't need to be an economist, but you need to have some sort of idea of what is the fiscal deficit and what is the repo rate. You have to have some basic knowledge. So that way, the media has kind of equipped me with a lot of tools, even the course and later on my journalism stream, which has helped me in good stead even with my think tank jobs and even now, wherein I am open to reading and knowing about absolutely anything under the sun. And I don't always think about how it's going to help me professionally. Maybe it might, maybe it might not. We'll see later. So that way it's really helpful.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Parth. We have amongst us Mr. Shiv Shankar Patwari from Rajarshi Shahu Mahavidyalaya, Latur. Sir, I would like to invite you to share your comments about this session, this entire series with us. I have unmuted you. If you could share your observations, comments with us, please.
Fantastic session, madam, for today and last yesterday. But I can't listen yesterday's session. Today I am jointly right time on beginning the session, and I totally looking the sessions for only like as a student, listening as a students. Thank you for the joining us. Our students also join for the same meeting from Rajashri Shahu Mahavidyalaya, Latur. Thank you, madam, joining us. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so
welcome,
much,
sir. Welcome, sir.
Thank you so much, sir. Just to add to what sir said, if anybody from the participants today were not able to attend yesterday's session, at the end of today's both the sessions, I'll put the YouTube link of day one's all sessions in the chat box. Please make sure you visit that YouTube page and watch the sessions. We have a couple of questions more, ma'am, with your permission, if we can take.
Yeah,
we have another
please.
5 to 10 minutes. Probably.
Yes, please.
Next, for the next question, I would like to call Akshay. Akshay, I'm unmuting you. Please ask your question. Yes.
Good evening, sir. My question is to Sanchayan, sir. The question is, from ideation of the policy to coming to fruition, how much time does it take?
Yeah, I read your question in the chat box. It's a very good question, firstly. And unfortunately, I cannot give you a very precise answer to this because no matter what policy it is, in our country, there is a big political say that a policy has. And when we are talking about political implications of like political considerations behind a policy, it really depends on the party in power and what are their priorities, what are the nation's priorities. Just like since I gave the national education policy example before, I'll continue with that. So I was working on this policy when I was in my previous job. It's been what, 1.5 years since we've been working on it. Last I heard that the policy was still with the Prime Minister's office and it's being vetted there. We still have absolutely no idea. Now, of course, there's an emergency, so we don't know. But even before that, we didn't know when it was going to be introduced in Parliament, when there was going to be debate in Parliament, and at what stage would the policy actually come into fruition, as you said. So ideally, the timeline, we'd want it to be less than a year. When it's a major policy, we'd want it to be less than 12 months, which is the time you need anyway to get stakeholder opinion, debate in both houses. Even if it's a state policy, both houses will come up with their opinions. If they want to put in a standing committee, they do that. So less than a year is, for a major policy, less than a year is great. But unfortunately, given our political climate in the country, and I'm not taking sides here about this party or that, no matter which party is in power, our political climate does not allow like speeding up of work as much as it should.
Are you made to make your policies in accordance to the agenda of the ruling party, or do you not take that into consideration and just make policies that are beneficial for the public in general?
So I don't, no one makes me do it, but if I'm making a policy right now for the Maharashtra government, it just makes like in the school education sector. For example, I'm making a policy on online learning in school education. So it just makes sense for me to actually see Shiv Sena's manifesto, right? And see what they have actually mentioned in these lines. And if I can tailor my policy recommendations around that, it is not about Shiv Sena telling me, it's just beneficial for me to pitch it to them later. Yeah. So that way, it's better if I am in congruence with them, because I understand that the think tank space is not an activism space. If I make them my enemy, my work never gets done. So I have to try and work with them as much as possible. So
be diplomatic enough to understand.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Akshay, for the question.
Sir.
We have in the session with us Diksha Saxena from Uttarakhand Open University. We would want to invite ma'am to share your observations and comments about the session. Yes, ma'am, I have unmuted you. Oh, there is some issue with the connection.
Yeah. We'll go to the next question. We'll see if she
Yeah,
can
we
come
will.
back.
Yes, we will take next question from Neil.
Yes. Yeah. I think these question answers, these people are not introducing themselves. I mean, we would love to know they're from which college or which university, or, somebody might just put it on the chat box, but others we don't know. So just ask them to tell which college they are from, please.
Yes. Neil,
Yeah.
please ask your question. Neil. Tech team, can you help me unmute Neil? I'm not able to do that from my end. I will read out Neil's question for the speakers. Neil, you are okay.
Hello.
Yes. Please ask. Yes.
Hello. Good afternoon. My name is Neil Deshmukh. I am currently pursuing my master's in communication and journalism from KC College. My question is, how do we introduce public policy into the public conversation? Because the way I look at it right now, that isn't really happening. And the question is open. Anybody can answer. Thank you.
Hari, would you want to go first?
Actually, Neil, if your mic is still there, what do you mean public policy, introducing it as a public conversation? Why do you think it's not part of the public discourse, let's say?
I mean, I wouldn't necessarily say that it is completely absent from the public discourse, but I generally do feel that when you're talking to people at large, it really seems as if policy is always a secondary concern, and that
What do you think is the primary concern, though?
Political allegiances, especially when we're talking about people are not living in the city, especially it becomes a very regional issue.
Yeah. I got your question. Okay, so Neil, actually I've studied a little bit about this, rather researched a little bit about this. It has to do also with the strength of political parties in relationship with the strength of your institutions. Right now in India, political parties are still quite strong, and a lot of people's identities in relation to that into Indian democracy is by the party, is by your party, or whether you're right, left, center, whatever it is. So it is actually not very easy to bring it into the public discourse unless your institutions themselves become stronger and they bring it in. So that is something we lack in society, to be frank, and this happens all over the world. It's not unique to India, but public discourse is like you're saying, limited more to political discussion rather than policy discussions. And if you look at countries that have, let's say, like Switzerland, that has a direct democracy, if you look at countries that have more what is called participative democracy, you can look that up. They do a lot more discourse on governance and public policy in general. So for instance, in India also, you can't really, I don't know if there are many universities that even offer courses on public policy, So that's like something we have to start doing a lot more. And there are think tanks like ORF that work on public policy, but there are very few like that in the whole country. We need a lot more than what we currently have. So you're right in pointing out that, there isn't much discourse.
I completely agree with what Hari said. Just to add one more thing, I also think, Neil, it's to do with the electorate and how the electorate votes. Like at the end of it, the voting in an election does not really happen on governance or policy issues till, like, for whatever reasons, and we can discuss this at length maybe later sometime. Caste, religion, a lot of these issues play a far more important role in our elections than actually public policy ones. So it of course works for political parties across the spectrum because they don't have to actually focus on what's being done. So that is another reason, changing our electorate largely. And this of course goes beyond Bombay, and Bombay mostly does not even vote because they think Bombay thinks it's too cool to vote mostly. But other places in the country, at least, the conversation has to go beyond just these caste, religion, all these issues during elections. And that is when political parties will have to start taking interest and start making public policy a part of the discourse, because votes will be tied to it. The moment you tie in votes, that's the weapon we have. That's where the conversation has to happen in every discourse.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for the answers. Surya ma'am cannot connect due to some internet issue. So I'm going to take this forward. I would now like to call Sudha ma'am to give the vote of thanks for the first session. Sudha ma'am, are you there?
So one sec, before, so Sudha ma'am, before you propose the vote of thanks, please remember, we want to relieve Hari and Sanchayan. Participants continue, please. Our speakers for the next session are already in. So the minute there is a vote of thanks word, people start living, please. Okay. Thank you, Nikita. Sudha ma'am, please carry.
Hi, I'm not here to scare you away. In fact, I'm here to take you on to the next session.
Hello, ma'am. So nice to see you.
Hi, Hari.
I won't interrupt again.
Hi, ma'am.
Yes,
How are you doing?
it is. It is. I mean, it's very nice to see both of you working in a very niche space, which is not common for everybody to understand and comprehend and take on. But it's a very, very interesting space now. Now that the world is opening and there are so many other opportunities coming up, I think public policy and international policies are very, very important. And it is lovely when people say it's okay to experiment, it's okay to enjoy life. It is important to understand. But a very important thing which I've always believed in as a teacher, as a person, as a parent, is that you need to understand yourself, you need to enjoy yourself, and you need to be aware of the world around you. Because the one thing that is constantly changing is whatever it is happening around the world. And today we see that it has changed so much that we need to embrace the change with a lot of you know, a lot of nicety about the whole thing. Uh, I also want to say one thing when Sanchan said, discover, observe, and understand. You know something, Hari and Sanchan, we've been doing that year after year because we discover a new batch, we understand the new batch, and we try to, observe the new batch and make further understanding of it. So it's an entire process, not just for policy, not just for you, not as a student, but it's something that you take with you for a lifetime. I'm sure both of you agree with me on that particular count. How much we have tried. When you first came in to class, we were discovering you, we observed you. At the end of 3 years, we kind of understood you. Okay, and now when we see you outside working somewhere else, that discovery, that observation, and the understanding has grown immense. What I want to say is, now is the vote of thanks. Thank you so much for taking time off during this COVID situation and making us a little more understanding of what public policy and international policy is all about. And I really like the entire thing that we are in right now. And I'm sure all our participants will agree with us when we say this, that yes, we've changed, and I think we're getting better with every session. So I take this opportunity to thank Manjula ma'am and Nikita for putting all this together. Surya, who's been taking it through. It's been a wonderful experience. Thank you so much, guys. And hope to see you soon outside of the virtual world. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So before we hang up, I must tell you that Hari and his wife, and of course another visiting faculty in the department, have put together a fantastic course on a master's in international relations. We are looking at a normal presentation with the board in the next week, and by the time you finish your graduation, I'm talking to all the TY students who are there in the group, we may be able to provide you a master's in international relations, which Hari himself is willing to spearhead, and Sanchayan will be very happy to have you also on board, helping us bring this degree to another level. It will be a very niche program. As you heard the speakers, they are very niche speakers. So over to you, Surya. Let's start with the other session. Thank you so much, Hari and Sanchayan.
Thank you so much,
Thank
ma'am.
you,
Bye-bye. See you soon.
Yeah.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you so much, Hari and Sanchayan, once again for those lovely sessions. We now quickly move on to the second session of the day. Before I introduce our next speaker to all of you, I would just like to tell you that I have put in the link of feedback form for the first session in the chat box. Please make sure you fill the forms and send it across. Thank you. Our next session is about challenges and opportunities in journalism, and the first speaker is Tunali Mukherjee. Tunali is a filmmaker and a writer based in Mumbai. She began her career as a photojournalist with Hindustan Times Mumbai. And in 2008, she won the Silver Prize for Best Spot News Photography in Asia at the IFRA Asia Media Awards. She has written several shows for TV, including Mintra Fashion Superstar and shows on Epic like Ekant, Indiepedia, Sancharna, etc. Her clients include companies such as Viacom 18, Paramount Pictures, Cox and Kings, National Geographic, Mumbai Mirror, Midday, Epic TV, and several European media networks as well. Currently, Tunali is writing a web series, and she is a student's favorite visiting faculty member with our department of mass media. Tunali, thank you so much for being here, and I would like to hand the floor over to you. Thank you.
Hi all. It was very interesting to see what Sanjay and Hari were talking about as well. I was there right from the beginning of the session. Thank you, first of all, for doing this, because Manjuna ma'am was talking to Sanchayan and I heard her say that there is a lot of insecurity among students right now. There's a lot of worry about the future. I'd like to say that it's not the students alone. It's all of us, actually. At the end of the day, the world is going through this together, as a whole, and it's we're taking this every day at a time. This is like unprecedented. No one has seen this before. History has taught us that we've overcome it, like whether it's been the world wars, whether it's been the plague. We're going to overcome this. Manjula ma'am also said she doesn't like the cliche, the new normal. I agree, because I think there is nothing like normal. I think normal is it's overrated, and I think normal is frankly boring. I think if you look at all the programming that's happening on on Netflix, on Z5, on any of the platforms, Amazon, normal people, we don't hear their stories. We hear stories from people who have broken expectations, who've won over a problem. So yeah, before I start, can you hear me, because I can't see it? Yeah. Okay. Great. Yeah. Okay. So speaking about opportunities in journalism, now actually the thing is, for anyone who wants to be a journalist, you're already going against the normal. You're already going against what people are used to. You're already going against security as such. I know for a fact that when I told my parents I want to get into journalism, and they were like, yeah, I mean, sure, you write well. They were worried because they would rather that being a doctor is preferable. And then I actually took it a step forward and I said, I want to be a photojournalist. And they did not know how to react, because what does that mean? What photographer, photojournalist, what is that? I didn't know either. And I walked into Hindustan Times when I was in my second year, because we had to do like an internship, and I went straight to the photo editor and I said, I want to work with you. And he was like, do you even know what you're going to be doing? And I said, I will be taking pictures, right? Like the reporter's going to be writing and I'll be taking the pictures. And he said, no, you are reporting news through a photograph. And everyone knows of the the saying, that a photograph, a picture is worth 1,000 words, which technically on newsprint means you have that much space and you need to give a photograph. You need to tell a story in that much time. The good thing is that photojournalism is always going to be relevant. So whether it's it doesn't matter how bad the depression in the market is. It's always news. If you look at 1929, when the Great Depression happened in America, some of the most poignant photographs came out of there, because obviously they were not just showing pictures of market crashing. What do you say? You look at the human aspect of it. So there is always a human side to everything that's happening in the world. So you're never going to, as a photojournalist or as a reporter, you're never going to be irrelevant. what might be happening right now is that the medium of telling a story changes. In my introduction, you must have wondered, what does this girl do? I mean, she's writing, she's writing for television, she's a journalist, she's a photojournalist. Like, what does she do? The thing that I realized is that all of this is connected, because at the end of the day, what I'm doing is I'm telling a story. Whether the story is a news story or whether the story is now a fiction story, as I'm writing a web series, which is rooted in what is happening in the country currently, but I'm still telling a story. So the medium is changing. And how does this change? When I joined BMM, I graduated in 2008. So in 2007, when I was learning photography, we were given a digital camera. And I actually joined KC, and I was really happy to know that we had a camera to ourselves. Like, the student had access to like a camera. I would go into the department. My first camera, my first SLR was the FM10 from the college, the Nikon FM10. I am in love with it, And when I got that camera, the digital camera, I remember everyone telling me, like a lot of my elders telling me, how lucky you are. You can see the photograph right now when you shoot it. So you know that it's not underexposed, it's not overexposed, because I've had a lot of like childhood photographs where our heads have been cut off, or, like it's so dark, you don't know. So now that doesn't happen anymore. And like our kids nowadays are like growing up with like, digital photography. So we had that, advantage given to us. Now, when I'm teaching the students, I realize that it's not just digital photography. That camera that has been given to you is also very good for recording video. And this is something which the industry is caught up on. And also, like, how many of us are reading like newspapers like physically now? We're all reading news on our mobile phones, on our iPads, on our screens. So photojournalism has shifted. It has evolved. And now we're telling stories not only, on a paper, we're also telling video stories. We're also shooting video. So I think the only thing that really affects us right now is how quick we are to adapt to change, which is why I think when this entire COVID thing happened, I just let it happen. There was nothing, there was no way I could, there's no way of fighting it. And there was no way of like protecting myself. So I just said, okay, this is happening. Now, what can I do? What is the best I can do out here? And, I'm looking at a lot of my colleagues, and they were quick to adapt as well. So a lot of photojournalists were like, instantly out, where people were telling us that Dharavi is now going to become the hotspot of COVID. There were people entering Dharavi. I mean, Kunal, who's going to be following me after this, probably will share his experience with you on this. You put yourself, where the action is. You're not going to be safe. You're taking these chances. So I think, this mind frame sort of expands to life as well, where you get used to things changing. Another problem, I guess, that we are foreseeing right now, or that's even happening in journalism right now, is a lot of layoffs are happening. There was a massacre, so to speak, in Hindustan Times just like 2 weeks ago, when they in fact they let go a lot of even top decision makers. So then what happens? Do you stop being a journalist? You don't, because you're lucky right now that we are living in the world of self-publishing. You just need to start off like a website. You need to start a blog. You can always keep telling stories. Sure, how am I going to monetize it? It takes time. But if you are already somebody who has, who is telling the right stories, people are going to listen to you. Look at the kind of news, and look at how we're getting our news. We're getting our news from Trevor Noah. We're getting our news from The Daily Show. We're getting our news from a lot of sources which are alternatives to the, usual newspaper. So I think when they were talking about opportunities in journalism, what I really wanted to bring forth was the fact that it is what you make of it. Today I'm talking to you about like hosting, like, I don't know, a Trevor Noah like show, like have like whatever Daily Show with Tenali Mukherjee. And I talk about how it is being, being somebody who's been confined for 3 months, and they're lifting the lockdown now when I feel like they should not. Hey, wait another month, because I see people walking around without masks. I'm worried about it. This is journalism as well. There is another question that a lot of people ask me, because the media, of course, is facing a lot of slack right now for being media. If you go and if you start interviewing, like Barkhatat interviewing the migrants who are walking home, is facing flack saying, why are you interviewing them? Why are you shoving a mic into their faces? You should be helping them. You should be driving them. So, we are doing our work, but we still get a lot of flack for it. But I think the most important thing is the credibility. like when a barkha duck comes out and she gives you news like from the ground, you will listen to her and you will want to understand her, compared to maybe somebody who just suddenly gets out of the house and says, today I'm here and I'm giving you whatever ideas or whatever news. But that credibility comes, like it comes with like reading the right news, reading the right sources. It comes with being very being like asking yourself that question: why am I telling the story? Why am I like, who am I speaking to? Are my sources credible? Do they have an agenda? Putting all of that in. Sources are actually a problem even in photojournalism, because when I, as a photojournalist, am going to a particular location and I'm shooting, I will see both the sides of the story because I'm right there. To give you an example, there was a huge outcry about reservations, in medical schools, in medical colleges, and there were two parties to this. One was the students who said, do not reserve seats because somebody who does not belong to any quota and is very good and is deserving because he's academically brilliant is not getting the seat, because somebody who has the quota is going to get the seat. And I was in the middle of a protest where on one side there were these students who were protesting, and on the other side was this were these was this political party that was protesting for reservation. And the final photograph, I shot both. And the final photograph that got published was the one of the pro-reservation. The question is, and that pro-reservation picture was the one that even won the award that, in Asia. So now the question is, as a person, was I for pro-reservation? Was I against reservation? As a journalist, I need to report both sides. So it's very important to I think that's very important, because right now what's happening is, because everybody and anybody can have a voice, I can have a blog, I can have a website, and anybody and everybody is talking. A lot of things are getting shared on social media as news, but it's not news, it's an opinion. And that is one of the biggest challenges in journalism, I feel. And I think this is regardless of whether we're going through COVID or whether we're going through I don't know what happens tomorrow, a cyclone, in Bombay. It's regardless of that. It's about these things, these fundamentals of journalism are not going to change. Other than that, I think I'm going to just wrap this up quickly. Other than that, I think my life has always been about change, because I've never accepted anything stable. After BMM, and in fact, even during BMM, when I started working with HT, I started realizing how much I love telling stories and how much I love visuals. And I was already thinking about what next, and I realized that, okay, you're a news photographer, you're a photojournalist. The next step is being a documentary photographer, where you can work long-term on a project. You work not on a news story that you meet once a day, but you work on something that really affects you, and you can shoot it for a matter of maybe a year, maybe 2 years. There are a lot of institutions that are looking at India right now, because the stories coming out of India are very interesting. We are an economic power, whether they want to ignore us or not. We are shaping a lot of the policies in the world. And they are very fascinated by what the youth are doing. They're very fascinated by what what an 18-year-old thinks about, because this 18-year-old is then going to go on to influence an entire country of billions. So again, if you feel like today I'm sitting here at COVID, because of COVID, and I'm not doing anything, you can just pick up your mobile phone and start recording that, start shooting that, start documenting that. And that is a nice way of starting. That is your first step you're taking to telling your story, and put it up anywhere. I mean, put it up on Facebook, keep your settings on public, put it up on Instagram. When you write a little piece about it, they say, today I went through depression, but then I looked out of a window, there was somebody with somebody who came and changed my day in any way. That is your first step towards journalism. That is your first step towards telling a story. That is your first step towards documenting history, because what you're going through right now is going to be history later. You're going to be looking through this and being like, oh wow, I did this at that time. So just keep documenting where you are. Accept change. Today, as a photojournalist, this is something which hit me straight on the face. I would start my day in Dharavi, maybe. I would start my day in a political rally, probably. I would start my day in the middle of so much poverty and so much, trouble and pain. Somebody's being wronged by the society, somebody has lost a leg, somebody is fighting against everything. And in the evening, I'm covering page 3 parties where they're selling a yacht for 1 crore, and it is the same city. I've not even moved an area. I have been in Kolaba in the morning, in maybe the slums, and now I'm in like Taj Mahal Hotel in the evening, and I'm meeting the same people. Yeah, I'm meeting the same commissioner in the morning, like at a very serious press conference, and in the evening he's having a champagne, and I'm just like, wow, in 24 hours, in less than 24 hours, I've just seen two sides of life. And this is what journalism teaches you. So I think, you know what, take a journalist, throw them in like the worst place on earth, throw them in the worst situation, they'll come up with the story, they'll come back with the story, and they'll document it, and it'll be history. So opportunities in journalism, oh my God, insane. Many. Opportunities in journalism, many, but good journalism, very little happening right now there. So I would say that our focus should mostly be opportunities in groundbreaking journalism, so that India, when they look at Indian media, they don't say, you know, it's not, I mean, we don't want to be like a Fox News, you know, we want to be somebody who like tells stories and people that understand and say, yeah, you're making a change. So yeah, that's me. There's a question which I think we'll answer later. Kunal, I think he should be taking over now.
Thank you so much, Sonali, for that your session really gave students a perspective, I'm sure, about what journalism is, because that is the crisis today, that we don't understand what exactly the journalism as a field is supposed to be. So I guess your insights helped students definitely.
I hope. Yeah, I'm here for questions even later. So yeah, anytime.
Yeah. Now we will move on to the last session of day 2. Our next speaker is Mr. Kunal Purohit. Kunal is a Mumbai-based independent journalist writing on issues of social justice, gender, and migration at the intersection of development. For over 12 years, Kunal has reported from across India, the UK, and Hong Kong. Some of his recent work includes investigating hate crimes and lynchings, farmer suicides, agrarian distress, as well as tracking the migrant crisis during the ongoing pandemic. His work is frequently published in Al Jazeera, South China Morning Post, and The Wire, among many others. For his work, Kunal has received the very prestigious Ramnath Goenka Award for Excellence in Journalism, the Statesman Award for Rural Reporting, as well as the Ladli Media Award for Gender Sensitive Reporting. He is an alumni of SOAS University of London, where he graduated with an MSc in Development Studies as a Felix Scholar. Kunal, I welcome you on behalf of the department, and I hand the floor over to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's great to see so many familiar faces right here. The most familiar, of course, is Manjula ma'am. And I just want to apologize to all of the 219 people on this chat, because Manjula ma'am has managed to drag all of us out of our beds on a Sunday afternoon. It just, Manjula ma'am, it just made me thank my stars that we didn't have Zoom when we were in college. Or you make us do this every Sunday.
And knowing your class, Kunal.
Absolutely.
Can you imagine not lying, not being able to say, hey, I'm so sick, I'm in bed, and then go for a picnic, and now Zoom is going to tell you where you are.
Absolutely right. So yes, apologies for being the guy who's doing this on a Sunday to you guys, but I hope it's worth it. I mean, tonight is brilliant as always. It's a very weird time to be addressing these Zoom conferences as well. We're seeing so much of the world that we've always known changing, and we're living in a very different world from what we lived in literally 3 months ago, right? And we've not even seen the end of it. I would say we're at the beginning of the crisis. We're not even at the peak of it. The world is going to change immensely. The world is going to break down. The world is going to be rebuilt in some ways as well. And I think that's where 220 people on this chat hold the key to so much that is going to then shape the new world that's going to come up after we finish this crisis, right? Because we're all stakeholders in the industry that's going to shape opinions, that's going to inform, that's going to educate, and that's going to create awareness. You wake up every morning, and then what do you look for the first thing, right? These days, in the last couple of months, 3 months, you look at the news. You want to see how things are changing. You want to see if the cases have reduced. You want to see if if the trend is getting any better. You want to see if the fatality rates are going lower. And who's giving you all of this information? It is the media, right? You can't trust Donald Trump's tweets. You can't trust Narendra Modi's speeches. You can't trust what Arvind Kejriwal says. You can't trust all of these guys by themselves. What you need is someone who also breaks it down to you, gives you the context that you need to understand what they're saying. I love how the Indian government always, for instance, says that, oh, we've got COVID under control. We have no community transmission. Our fatality rates are so low, our recovery rates are so high. What they don't tell you is the context, right? So all of these last 2.5 months, the context is what has been missed. I mean, even today, if the government is saying that the situation is under control by throwing some sort of data points at you, you then need to look at that context and understand this is really not a very accurate sign of how things are. Because if you're hearing of people all around falling prey to COVID or getting infected, clearly there's something wrong with the fact that we're unlocking ourselves and walking out on the streets now, right? So that context is what all of us are going to be shaping up in the next few years. It's traditionally been the case, especially in BMM classes, that at the last year when people have to choose between advertising and journalism is always a trickle, right? It's always a very, very small percentage of people who actually choose journalism. And it saddens me, but that's just the way it is. And I hope that's something that we can change in this new world order that we're going to be now seeing rise about in the next few years, in the next few months. Because more than ever before, I have very little doubt that it's good journalism that we all need at this point very, very sorely. We cannot trust what our governments are saying. We cannot trust what NGOs say. We cannot trust what academics say in isolation. We need the media to play a sensible role, to be questioning the authorities, to holding them accountable. You've been hearing all of the stories about how people, around you, people in your cities, in Mumbai, in Delhi, are falling prey to COVID, and the government is saying we have enough beds, right? And despite which, every single day, if you go to social media, you'll see a story which says, someone I know wanted a bed, did not get it, died. And why is that, right? Why is that? So that's the sense of accountability that good journalism can create. Which brings me to the next part of it. Good journalism is something that we all, would possibly love and would want. But is good journalism also even possible in this time? Tonali told you about how, a workplace that both Tonali and I worked for, for a very long time, the Hindustan Times. It sacked 150 people, and some of the editors that I have worked under, very, very summarily just woke up and decided, your services are no longer required. It's happening across different newsrooms. It's not going to be restricted to media houses like the Hindustan Times. It's going to happen to smaller newsrooms. It's going to happen to bigger newsrooms. And the question is why? The answer is it's because our news model is broken and has been broken for a very long time. We don't know who we need to charge for to get the news and to produce the news that we are producing. And as a result of which, we'll take money from anyone who throws money at us. We'll take money from advertisers, we'll take money from political parties. There's also paid news, which means we're also taking money from candidates who are wanting to fight for elections. You'll see all kinds of things playing out in different media sectors, right? And I feel like that's what that's something that I want all of you guys on this chat to think about. You have a few years before you possibly enter the media world. Rather than being, going out and being yet another foot soldier in a new media organization, why can't you then think of also fixing this model? Why can't you look at, solutions that we could bring to fix this model? And, don't underestimate yourselves, because you are a generation which is stepping into a world which none of us know. So in some ways, this generation is just as wise as all of us, who are from the previous batches and previous generations who are currently living in this world. We don't know how this world is going to be like. We know that, even a handshake can now be fatal. We know that you should not be kissing and hugging your dear ones, right? These are some truths that we've never thought we would ever wake up to see in our lifetimes. So So this is the world that we are shaping, and this is the world that we are going to now enter for the next foreseeable future, maybe a few years at best, or maybe for a very long time. And that's the role that you must then look at. What is it that you can bring to this new world? You don't have to become a part of the establishment as the establishment exists today, because all of us, and trust me, all of us are searching for answers. All of the media organizations that I know, all of the editors that I work with, they're all looking for answers on how do we fight this. This is the time when we need good journalism, but this is also the time when we don't have any money coming in. And my wife works in the advertising industry, and she runs a production house of her own. And she tells me that brands are not going to be wanting to spend money on ads anymore. It's going to take a very, very long time before brands start opening their purse strings and giving money as advertising to media organizations and to channels. So if the advertising stops, where is the money going to come from? And that's a question that we don't have the answer for. I trust me. I mean, I wish I could say that I can contribute to the answer at this point, but honestly, I'm as lost as all of us right now, and I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I think this time, these few months, and the few months that are going to come in the next foreseeable future, will make us think very, very hard about some of the most fundamental things of life, things that we've always taken for granted, right? I mean, imagine we are living in a time when people are even debating whether reading a newspaper is safe or not. And some people are saying we don't want to read the newspaper because we might die of COVID-19. And that's the world that we're all sort of entering, and which is why I don't have the answers to so many of the questions that I am raising today. But I want to raise the question because I want you guys to also think, as you listen to all of us, I hope you don't think of this as a bunch of oldies, sort of talking down to you, because I definitely am not, and I heard Tunali and she isn't. We're all just being, I can't say, I see Manjula ma'am making faces. This is a bit intimidating, by the way, ma'am. I can only see your face on full screen. I can't see anyone else's. We don't have the answers, and I feel like you guys are in a good position to now think hard about what you're seeing through. Now think hard about the place that you want to find yourself in. We need new solutions, we need new media organizations, we need new models of journalism. As Tunali said, I went through a journey of my own because I decided to take time off after working for about 8-9 years in media organizations. I decided to go to London. I did my master's, and I realized something. I said, I would look around, I would talk to some of the most famous journalists there, some of the most, famous personalities in the media, and I would see that they don't have one job. They don't have any one job where they're, fixed and they go to every morning and they end up with every night. Increasingly, people are looking at a gamut of employment options. It's no longer a silo that you must enter and say, this is what I do from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. and this is what I finish doing. As Tunali was saying, technology, social media, the internet has also democratized so much of the information and so many ways of publishing the information. So I would say that if you want to be in the media, think of carving out a space which takes the best of all of these options that you have before us. Unfortunately, when we graduated, this was 11 years ago. It makes me feel old saying this, but this was 11 years ago. We didn't have as many options, and I wish we did. So I ended up joining a newspaper called the Free Press Journal, and I was working there for a year before moving on to the Hindustan Times, where I worked for about 6-7 years. So our options were slightly more limited. I wouldn't say we didn't have options, but our options were slightly more limited. Whereas that's no longer the case. You have so many more options that you must explore. So do not underestimate yourself. Think hard, think fresh. Junk the baggage that so many people like us carry, and tell you that there is only a certain limited number of ways in which you can do things. It's a bit of a cliche when they say that the world is your oyster, but the world truly is right now, because the world is as clueless and lost as you might be coming out of college. So that's something that I would definitely want to tell all of you guys. And lastly, one part of me that that can also now say all of these things with a certain amount of confidence is because for the past couple of years, 2.5 years now, I've been an independent journalist. and that was because I no longer sought the credibility of these big brands. For instance, Hindustan Times. You see how on social media, almost all media organizations have flaws which get exposed, once every few days, every few months, depending on how bad the organization is. All of them have baggage, right? And all of them are trying to report in an era where if you write about Modi, and if you write against him especially, people of his party, people who support him will all, call you different kinds of names and different kinds of abuses depending on their educational levels. If you write against the Congress, which almost everyone does, you are again then called, different kinds of names. Maybe not as vicious as, the former category, but that's where we are. We're trying to navigate that space where we do our journalism, where we attack those in power, and those in power, it could be Modi, it could be Kejriwal, it could be Rahul Gandhi. God save us if he is in power. It could be Uddhav Thackeray. It could be anyone else, right? We will attack anyone who is in power. And in my short tenure of all of these years, I have gone on to report against a government led by the Congress, by the NCP. I've reported on the Shiv Sena, which is now leading the government. I've reported against the BJP. So I've clearly seen that gamut, and that's what we must do. We must question power, right? So I want to say that all of this is possible when when you decide that being independent is not such a bad thing, and you decide to shed some of the baggage that you carry. And one way that happens is by being in institutions like KCBMM. And I say KCBMM, and not KC, as Manjula ma'am would figure, because KCBMM is a very special place. It's not KC College, trust me. If you've had the fortune or the misfortune of being only in KC College and not KCBMM, you will see the difference. You'll know what I mean. KCBMM is a special place. Educational institutes like KCBMM, like SOAS, provide you that space where you can mingle with professionals who tell you different things. So in my time, I sat through lectures where I learned photography. Not to a great extent, but I did learn a bit of photography from a great photographer, David. I learned cinema from one of the most wonderful artists that I now know, Anuja. I learned CI from Nandini ma'am. I learned print journalism and so much more from Manjula ma'am and Dipti ma'am. These were great times because it gave us the exposure to be able to listen to all of these guys, and that's the beauty of being in spaces like these. So ensure that you exploit these spaces, get as much exposure as you can. Journalism is no longer, even if you want to be a print journalist, it will always, for instance, I am a print journalist, but in the last 2 years, I have produced podcasts. I've produced 2 podcast series of my own. That's a skill that I've picked up on the job. I've recently shot and finished a video for the South China Morning Post on the migrant crisis, and I also just very routinely shoot my own photographs. So these are all skills that you will need, and it's the educational institute which will be able to provide you the exposure to such people. So make sure that you don't discount this exposure. Make sure that you exploit every penny of what you paid KCBMM. Make sure that you exploit every person who's around you in KCBMM, because they all carry a lot of experience. And have the time of your life. I mean, these were some of my best years. And I had a fantastic time. So ensure that while you're doing all of this, you have a lot of fun, because I did. I'm going to end there, and I'm going to hope that there are no questions. But if there are questions, I will try my best.
Kunal, you're taking my job. Huh? You're doing everything now. You're doing video, you're doing photo, you're doing sound, you're doing everything.
Listen, India's unemployment rate is at its highest.
This is how it's supposed to be. I mean, you cannot just be doing only one thing anymore, because a lot of photojournalists, friends of mine, are coming to me and saying, hey, you can write, right? So then can you do my captions for me? And they come to me with such stories because they're the ones on the field. And I'm like, why don't you write? And they're like, we do not know how to write, So it's always good to be able to, try to work with what you think you cannot do and then build up on it, because look at recession and look at like people trying to downsize. If you have more skills, then people will obviously come to you and hire you much more than somebody who will need a partner to work on the field with.
So I think just adding to what Tonali and Kunal are saying, welcome again to this interesting conversation that we were having. Very honestly, a lot of times when these sessions we are organized in the auditoriums or in the MMR hall or wherever, after just the introduction part, I just ran to some other office for some other work. And thanks to this lockdown, I am getting to listen to my own students, which is really interesting. And I'm sure that my presence is not intimidating, Kunal. So please, okay, I'm also learning from you all as you give us new perspective. And I think the new, as this new normal word is something which I don't like, but the most important word in today's media industry is convergence, which you both are very good with. So when you do courses which are giving you a 360-degree experience of all fields, please, I've been telling the students right now also, do not segregate as I am a film student, I am a print journalism student, I am a communication student, I am an advertising student. I think everything comes together, whether you are a broadcast journalist, you are a print journalist, you are a blogger, you are a new media writer, everything, content developer, everything needs communication. And the more you know about different fields, you become a better writer for wherever, whatever you are doing. I mean, hats off to Tunali, the way she has moved. Hats off to Kunal for having the guts to write by traveling extensively in states where the elections have been going on. He has been sharing the post with me. And if you have forgotten to share, you have shared it with Nandini. That means the whole country gets those links from her. So she takes as much pride in her students as we take in you all. Surya, can we start with the questions? The questions are there in the
Yes,
chat box?
we already have questions for both our speakers. We will start with Krutarth. Krutarth, can tech team help me? I am unable to unmute the participants. Can tech team help me to unmute Krutarth Patnaik, please?
Hello, am I audible?
Yes,
Yeah, perfect. Thank you very much, ma'am and sir, for your wonderful insights. Now, as a wannabe journalist, I have I have a list of questions, but just trying to concise them in one. Ma'am and sir, it's an open question for both of you. Since there has been a lot of question about ethical and unbiased journalism and a lot of doubts clouding about it in the industry, my question would be, do you think ethical and unbiased journalism will prevail in the 21st century? Since Tunali ma'am also gave the example of Fox News, which was very hilarious. So, and how difficult do you think that it will be to sustain the lost prestige of the profession, as you rightly said that many of the students are not opting for journalism as a profession as they used to be because of the lost prestige in the recent years? And how can the next generation, that is us, can bring about the change that can restore the prestige of the profession and maybe bring back the ethical and the unbiased, fearless journalism that should prevail in a healthy democracy? Thank you.
Lani, do you want to take it?
Kunal, I think everyone, the answer is in front of you in Kunal. It is very tough to be an unbiased, reporter, especially at a time, exactly what Kunal said, you write against or you write something criticizing, or, you just report about what the Modi government is doing. And there's going to be like 100 people jumping on you saying, like, troll, like you haven't, it's not the truth. And on the other hand, you write something which is against, which is against the opposition, and, you will be brought down for that. But I don't see why we are saying journalism is away from unbiased ethical journalism. Why is there a difference? Journalism has to be unbiased, has to be ethical. I mean, there is no two ways about that. And if you as a student go into this with that idea, with that mindset, you're going to obviously be a better reporter, and that means the next generation of reporters coming in know that, okay, this is it, this is my path. Kunal is the most unbiased and the most ethical journalist I know, so he's going to be answering this question better.
Was that a way to just palm the question off?
No, it's true. Come on.
I mean, listen, Krutat, I honestly don't know the answer to that question. I mean, I feel like the answer to that question lies in what we do next. And it lies with the fact that, can we now look at a model which is which is less broken, which is less susceptible to the pulls and pushes of the political establishment. I mean, I've reported, as I said, I reported across different governments, and I see that the pressure that journalism is under and the pressure that the media houses are in this current establishment is unprecedented. And we are already seeing the victims of this pressure in the forms of people being silenced, people being sometimes sacked, and media organizations losing their bias, right? So what we need to then look at is can we then possibly think of newer ways of doing journalism? I mean, even today, you say that journalism is biased and sometimes unethical, but I want to stress on the fact that it's sometimes unethical and it's sometimes biased. It's not always unethical. It's not always biased, right? So rather than us developing personality cults around one journalist or two journalists or three journalists, can we, and I want to know how many of us subscribe to good journalism in these 200 odd people that we have here. How many of us support good journalism the way that we do, right? Do we subscribe to media organizations which we think are doing good journalism? Do we donate to organizations which are doing good journalism? I think somewhere the answer also starts there. As an independent journalist, I have access to different editors, and I know that Caravan, which does one of the most, sort of very hard-nosed, in-depth journalism, is actually one of the worst paymasters in the industry, right? As a result of which, a lot of journalists are not able to work with it because it won't help them pay the bills. Journalism cannot be done on empty stomachs, and it should not be done on empty stomachs. We don't expect a corporate CEO to go empty stomach and earn profits for his company. And in the same way, we must not expect a journalist to be empty stomach and bring out good journalism. Good journalism also has to be enticing and rewarding, even in the financial sense. I think we've had enough of this whole romanticization of sacrificing, because what it does, it is basically it's a very class perspective. What you're then looking at is only privileged people like me who don't have to worry about rents being able to be independent journalists. If I was someone who had to pay rent in a city like Mumbai, I might not have been able to do independent journalism. So I think we must be able to understand that for good journalism to sustain, we all need to then support it in whatever way we can. And at the same time, start looking for answers. And as you guys go ahead, as Kruthat, you go ahead, I hope that one part of you, decides to become a good journalist, but another part of you also thinks of solutions.
Thank you, Krutar. Thank you, Kunal and Janali for that answer. Next question is from Vaidehi. Can help me in unmuting her, please? I would request students to please introduce themselves and then proceed with their question.
Also, if they can join their video also, it would be nice, because finding the person is very difficult.
Yes.
Hello.
Yes, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right.
Video on, please.
Can I keep what?
Turn your video on, please.
All right. I actually didn't quite set up my phone. Is it cool if I just ask the question?
Okay. All right. Go ahead.
All right. My question is to Kunal, sir. So right now, since the lockdown is on, I've been watching news lately, and it seems like they are a bit biased. So the question is, are they? Also, lately news are shown with so much emotion. Shouldn't news be delivered with a straight face without any background music? Also, this is the first part, and the second question is, there are many comedians like John Oliver, Hassan Minaj, Trevor Noah, who've been delivering news now instead of doing stand-up comedy. So why is there such a sudden surge of all these comedians? And the thing is, they seem to be doing quite a better job, gaining the views and stuff. So do you think? So what do you think about this? Yeah.
Okay. Firstly, you said that news channels these days look a bit biased. I'm guessing you're referring to news channels or even newspapers, is it?
No, just news channels, not papers.
Right. Okay. Whether the answer to that lies in what news channels you're watching. I mean, and then I mean, I can assure you that they've not just become biased. They've been biased for a very long time. As I said, hi, can you hear us? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I can hear you.
Yeah. Okay. Um, so yes, there is an element of bias. We've seen enough and more times that bias very openly exhibits itself. I remember the last time that I'd come to KC and I was talking to some students. I had said this very clearly, and I still maintain it. Do not watch television news. Please. I have stopped watching television news for a few years now. I don't know if Manjula ma'am endorses this, but I am very categorical that I would not advise anyone to watch television news. If you must find, I mean, you must look at trustworthy news sources. Look at sources which give you, journalism which is much more in depth. You don't want opinion. The problem is that a lot of us want opinion. A lot of us want our news to, just confirm the bias that we have. It's called it's called confirmation bias, right? As a term, we want the news to say that yes, Modi is a bad guy, or yes, Modi is a good guy, because we've already made up our mind on him. Similarly, for other political parties and other concepts, right? So look for news which will give you the facts, which will provide the context, and that will allow you to make your own decisions as well. And look for news which does the hard work, doesn't just report what Modi has said or what Rahul Gandhi has said, because that's the lamest thing to do. Look for news which doesn't engage you in debates, because that's not their job. You need to debate this, within yourself to understand what is it, but look for the context. Journalism today is only about debates because people don't want to send journalists out to actually report on the news. So it's easier to call three people on this in the studio and then do a debate on the issue instead, right? That's one thing. There is bias, yes. You said about John Oliver as well, right? John Oliver and Trevor Noah and this breed. I find it interesting, and I can't help but think that that's possibly a byproduct of the fact that so many people are losing their faith in journalism today, right? It's increasing the fact that people are being polarized. People think that the media is not doing their job as well, which is why you then see a new breed, of entertainers and artists who are coming up and who are not really breaking the news. I mean, who are not really giving you the news, but they are more breaking the news. So that's exactly what I mean. If you understand what they're doing, they're actually giving you a context to what, for instance, John Oliver. He's making you understand the context of what President Trump has said. He's not bringing a document from the White House to say that President Trump has authorized something wrong. That is what journalism is. Journalism will bring out that document, will report, and will unearth truths. What Trevor Noah, what John Oliver, what all of these guys are doing is they're putting it in context. And I think that's a very, very crucial thing to do. I think that's very important, and I'm glad that they are doing what they're doing. But one must also understand the difference between journalism and between that brand. And I wouldn't call it journalism. That's how I look at it.
Thank you so much for that answer. Next question is from Vaishnavi Sharma. Can we please unmute her? Yes, Vaishnavi, go.
Hello. Firstly, my warmest greetings to everyone on Mediascape. My question is to both Tunali ma'am and Kunal sir. A lot of times we have heard that there is not much money in the field of journalism, and a lot of people are skeptical about it. I wanted to ask how far this stands true, and do you think that this is one of the reasons of people deviating from good journalism?
You want to go first, Tunali?
Kunal, go for it.
I mean, firstly, depends on how much is a lot of money, right? It's very subjective. But I must tell you that things are getting better depending on where you work. If you work with credible, if you work with big organizations, they do end up paying a decently good sum. Obviously, if you compare it to to like your colleagues who are in engineering or who become lawyers, who become doctors, you'll end up feeling very bad for yourself. So I would strictly advise you to not compare your salaries. But as I said, right, this whole notion that journalism can be and should be done, with low pay, is a bit troubling to me. I feel like that is also something that we need to then increasingly change. Journalism should be about getting people who are good at their work and then paying them decent remuneration, enough for them to sustain their families. I can't, Vaishnavi, I can't tell you of the number of colleagues of mine who are very good journalists who've quit because they saw that they were just not rising up the income ladder, despite putting in the hard work, despite putting in the money, right? And again, it sort of all boils down to the fact that our news models are broken right now. So like you'll see now, because advertisers are pulling out, news companies don't have money to pay anymore, and they're either going to have very, very bad salary cuts for people, or they're going to sack people, and we're seeing both already happening. So yes, in some ways it is true that journalists are not paid well, and I think that's a huge problem. But again, I wouldn't want to generalize it and make a statement like this, because I also know journalists who get paid very, very well. So there are all kinds. So you've got to choose where the remuneration is higher and where you can actually do good, meaningful journalism, and achieve that sweet spot between the two somewhere.
To put my 2 cents in, when I was talking about my parents being very skeptical about me becoming a photojournalist, this was one of their concerns, of course, because they want me to be able to take care of myself financially. And I reached a stage where I would work. I mean, when you're a journalist, firstly, there is no working hours. Breaking news can happen at any time, especially if you're a photojournalist. I mean, you can be woken up from your bed and be told to go run. There is a factory on fire, or something has happened. You need to go shoot it. So it's 4 o'clock, 2 o'clock, whatever it is. I had a problem because when I started off in HT, they were paying me per photograph. They were paying me, I think, 500 rupees per photograph published. Okay, not assignment. So I may have gone for an assignment, and after I come back, if they have not published the photograph for whatever reason, I don't get paid. But I'm spending money on, like the taxi, or I'm spending money to get there and to come back. And, maybe I've eaten something there, and I'm spending money. I'm investing money and time. And I was not getting my returns. When I spoke to my team, my photo editor told me about his story, about how when he was shooting on, on film, not only did you have to pay for reaching the assignment spot, you had to pay for your camera, for your film, and then you had to pay and get it processed on your own, and then go to the newspaper and then see if they would take your photograph. So, I mean, of course, if you are an in-house photographer, your organization will process the film for you. But basically, we are investing money and we're investing time and resources into this. Are we getting things back? Not yet. I'm saying not yet because the first few years are going to be rough, for sure. The first few years, you will not get paid. The first few years, you will not get the kind of money you want. Your friends who have done engineering, or your friends who are into business, are all they're all buying their first cars, or they're getting, those fancy cocktails, and you're just like, I'm just going to go and get like a dosa and go home. Or you just keep saying, no, I don't want to come out for dinner. This is going to happen to you. But then I remember, like, when I was, they interviewed me to join the press club, and they looked at my finances and they said, oh, you're sustaining yourself on this? And I just looked at them and I said, if I wanted to be rich, I wouldn't have been a journalist. And, I think it sort of resonated in the room, and they said, yeah, makes sense. So yes, we do not have as much money as probably like an engineer or somebody else would. But if you start working hard and you start making a name for yourself, you will get paid for the opinion or for your work. And you know what the thing is, at that time, the money that you're making is a brand that you have set up for yourself. So you are able to negotiate deals. You're able to ask for the money that you think you deserve. Secondly, like I said, the world is looking at India. So there are a lot of funds, there are a lot of organizations that would pay you to do stories. Okay, they would go ahead and they realize that this is a problem. They go ahead and realize that a photojournalist or a journalist cannot sustain themselves on the kind of, say, if I want to do a project for a year, who's going to pay me for a year of same kind of photographs? But there is a trust who will probably have a program where if you want to tell a story about, say, child laborers, there will be a trust who will be able to fund you for that 1 year or for that 2 years. But you have to obviously have everything in order. You have to tell them why you want to do it, what your story is going to do, how it's going to make a social change. So yeah, money is less, but then work hard and then money comes. I mean, I know for a fact that a lot of my documentary photographer friends are, leading as, as lavish a life as anybody else. Why not? And I think like what Kunal very correctly asked, we are all complaining about news not being not being credible, but are we paying for news? How many of us are subscribed to a Guardian or to like anybody else? Like, when you like a Wall Street Journal, you hit a paywall and you want to open up an incognito tab and you want to figure out a way around it. You want to figure out a way of like, reading the article without paying. We're not paying for our news, and then we are wondering whether we're making money. So the change has to start coming in from within. So I'm actually quite excited about this entire model, that Kunal is talking about, because I feel like, there's going to be, if Instagram can make you money, if you can get paid for like just wearing a pretty dress and standing somewhere and you get like, influencers make a lot of money. I don't see why journalists cannot. It's only about like, we need that one smart person to figure out a way of monetizing this, and it's gotten much better. Trust me, it's gotten much better from where we were.
I want to say something. Just one quick thing. Manjula ma'am, this is very interesting. I remember I was in HT and one of my circulation heads in HT had told me that every time that they increase the paper's price by 1 rupee, they see a significant number of people stop buying the newspapers. 1 rupee, right? That's how we're looking at it. So Tonali's point again, support media. I can't stress this enough. Please go out. Please support media organizations. Please support journalists who you think are doing great work. Doesn't matter who they are, but go ahead and do that, right? And just Vaishnavi, don't let that question that you asked dictate what you're going to do with your life.
True.
You much rather follow the passion that you have, even if you think at this point that it doesn't pay as much. You will find ways to ensure that it pays enough and more. We're not seeing people starving in cities, right? Middle class people. It's about adjusting your lifestyle somewhere. It's also about having realistic, aspirations about yourself, not being carried away by what the world around projects your needs to be, knowing what your needs are, and following your passion. You don't want to be an adult at 35 and be miserable because you're stuck in a job that you hate, and because most people around you will be, right? So you much rather be doing a job that you're passionate about.
And also, like, just for everybody, because there's so many of us here, journalism, what we're talking about right now is hard news. But when you go through a course like BMM, journalism is not only hard news. There is features, there is, there's fashion journalism, there's a lot. So if you think that you are passionate about journalism, you want to tell stories, you want to write for a magazine, there's a lot of scope. So yeah.
Thank you so much.
To add to what Tonali and Kunal are saying, I think, knowing my age and my experience and job satisfaction and money and how lucrative are my jobs, or whether I'll make good money or not out of this, bang, 2 more years, masters, then I should have 10 lakhs, then I should have 15 lakhs, then 20 lakhs, then 40 lakhs. Somewhere, as Kunal and Tonali were rightly pointing it out, there will come a lull, a kind of a halt in that system where you will start feeling very lost. So my, suggestion would be, first identify, like how the previous speaker said, what are you passionate about? Are you skilled enough to survive in that passion or not? The more you start building on it, money will automatically come in, but you have to be focused. With the new generation, issue is, what will be my package after this degree? Now you're just doing a graduation. Do you get a great package after you do your BA or a BCom or a BSc? No. You need to do your masters. You need to have work experience. You need to identify what exactly are you wanting to do, and also it should be making you happy. If you can't be happy about it, then over a period of time, it will become like a drudgery. You will not like it. You don't know this, but on the screen that you are seeing people, Srinivas comes from a broadcast journalism background. He has worked for so many years. Surya is an engineer with L&T who gave up because she loves teaching. I was a qualified teacher with literature. I do not know how I landed up here. That's a long story. But I love my students. I love my courses. I love my work. And I will continue loving it till Casey throws me out. So you need to be self-motivating. Set your own difficult deadlines. And you see things will fall into place. अब मैं घर में बैठी हूँ, अब मेरा क्या होगा, ऐसा नहीं होता है. काम तो करो, upskill yourselves now. Learn things now. This is the best time to learn. By the time you finish this lockdown and all, you may not even get a day's time to sit and do a session like how you are doing now in your own comfortable rooms. So everything should be seen as an opportunity. I will not say a pandemic is an opportunity. I will never say that. But then we all are in this pandemic. So we should know how to get out of this. Agreed? Yes, Surya, over to you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. With your permission, can we take one last question and then wind up? We have, I guess the sessions have been really wonderful. We have questions coming in the chat box. It is very difficult to,
take one more, Surya. Take one.
Yeah, we'll take one more from Savni. Can we take Savni's question?
Hello, hi. Can everybody hear me?
Yeah.
Hello, good afternoon to one and all. I'm very happy that we have such brilliant speakers with us right now. Really glad to be a part of this session. My question is, just so you all know, I am a film, television, new media production student. I'm in the TY right now. So I don't know how this question might come off because I don't really know a lot about advertising or journalism, any BMM things that in specific. So what my question is how, as people who are a part of the industry, as experts in this industry of journalism, how have you all dealt with the concept of freedom of speech? How have you all gone about with it? Have you all had any issues where, for example, in your workspace, maybe you're working under somebody and you really wanted to post that one thing, but you couldn't? Have you had that experience? And if yes, how have you dealt with it?
That's interesting. So, Nali, do you want to take this or should I?
Go for it. I'll after you.
Hoping you'd say you will. It's a very good question. I must confess, I don't have a very ready answer to it, but I don't know. I mean, what is, this is this eternal dilemma, right? What is freedom of speech? I mean, is freedom of speech saying, देश के गद्दारों को गोली मारो सालों को? Is that freedom of speech? Is inciting violence against one community, one caste? Is that freedom of speech? So I think that's, freedom of speech cannot be absolute. If freedom of speech had to be absolute, then all kinds of hate speech that we see, and this is from I'm saying this is from Nazi era, Nazi Germany era, right? Hate speech is actually the precursor to a genocide. We've seen that in Germany. We are seeing that in many different countries. Some would say we are also seeing that in India. So that freedom of speech cannot be absolute, and I think as journalists we must also realize that our responsibility is to handle that freedom that we've been given very, very carefully. And by very carefully, I mean that we cannot be defamatory. We cannot be saying things without accountability. We cannot be saying things without having the evidence for saying those things. And I think that's a cardinal rule of journalism, right? So in that sense, it's very interestingly tied in with the idea of good, hard-nosed, credible, solid journalism. That you make your points based on the evidence that you have, that you go out and gather the evidence that you need to say something, and it's only then that you actually say it. And I think that, good journalism, if done well, is great advertising for freedom of speech, exercised with full responsibility, exercised in the way that it must be, not exercised, in a wild manner as we are seeing these days, right? So I think it's very important to understand, this critical debate about how free is the idea of freedom of speech. I hope that sparks a debate in your head because I don't seem to have an answer.
Coming to the idea of freedom of speech in the media, in the press and news, India has been falling. Yeah, Kunal, you agree with me, right? Like, it's probably like, I think ever since this government has come in, I mean, the freedom of speech has been falling. And on the other hand, hate speech has been rising. So again, like, what is this freedom of speech? Like, they're using the same freedom of speech to shut you down, and they're using the same freedom of speech to, like, like, say whatever they want to. At this moment, what really troubles me is a lot of people, and this is and freedom of speech is not only for the media here, I mean, for any person out here. Look at the average Facebook comments post, the posts. Like, everyone's wearing like their hate on their sleeves, and they're so proud about it. I mean, what is happening there? So there's a lot of like, I think this freedom of speech is very debatable. It's like ethics, right? Like, a photojournalist who's taking a picture of a child dying, Kevin Carter, that famous picture of the vulture waiting for the child to die. Till date, people are like, oh, he was a bad man, that he didn't help anybody, he didn't help the child. And I actually read somebody last week writing this on Facebook saying, at least he killed himself. And I'm like, at 25, you're happy that someone killed himself because he didn't do the right thing, so. But again, your education, your upbringing, all of that makes you a person. And this person is going ahead and then reporting on what is happening in the world today. There is going to be, of course, you're human. There is going to be some sort of emotions coming in, but you need to be responsible. I think that is the thing. Like, when it comes to reporting, you're supposed to report unbiased. You're supposed to report the facts. Anything, if you say, I felt really bad for this kid who was walking with his parents, to his house, like 1,500 kilometers away, that's not fact. That is then opinion, then that goes into like features, it goes into a different, it's not news there. Okay, so I think when it comes to freedom of speech in the media, this is what I would follow. Like, if I'm writing a news story, I would write it extremely like factual. If I'm writing a story in a magazine, then I would write it with some heart and some emotions. I'm going to take this idea of freedom of speech into what I'm currently working on, which is a web series. With Netflix and all of these things coming in, again, media, right? This is also media in a way. It's not news media, but it's still media. Have you noticed the amount, have you noticed how much like content has changed over like maybe 2 years? Initially we would go into film festivals and see like films from Brazil and from France and be like, wow, these guys can like do whatever they want on screen. They can say whatever they want on screen. And now that's happening with like Netflix, with the Patal Lok or Sacred Games and all of that. We're getting into a lot of trouble. Like the current web series that I'm writing, I'm just like, every time I'm writing and I'm thinking, oh my God, will I get beaten up, or will I be forced to leave India after I do this? Because these are controversial topics that we are bringing up, that we are talking about, and that we are addressing. These are things that initially people would hush talk amongst themselves in the living rooms, which are now coming out in public, whether on social media, whether through a web series. I don't know, I feel like definitely, like, in one way, maybe like media, the press is losing its freedom of speech, whether you want to think whether it's a economic decision, whether it's a decision of like the government, I do not know. But on the other hand, people are talking a lot more than they would before, so it's much more difficult to shut down a person and shut down a person's voice now. So yeah, I hope this answers your question.
Before we wrap up, I just want to quickly say one thing, and I think, Savni, your question is very interesting because, listen, BMM is not an engineering course, right? BMM is not a course which will, bring out robots on the other side. So I would say, like Savni, I hope everyone else has these debates. I mean, that's one culture that I was introduced to only in the UK. In a very, very big way, where campuses are very active, very passionate, having debates about ideologies. And as you go through all of these years of your graduation, read a lot, read beyond your curriculum, read things which you don't read otherwise. Read about what's happening. Read, right? And not on your mobiles alone. Read authors, read theories, read all kinds of things, but have these debates, because no one wants an individual who thinks like the world thinks anyway, right? Because then you're part of the herd. And as a media practitioner, that is something that is a definite way of not landing up a job. If your ideas and if your thinking is going to be like the rest, they will not want to give you a job, because there will be someone who will always, come at a cheaper price then, right? Your ideas, your philosophy, your ideology is what is going to make you stand apart. And as media practitioners, I urge you to use all of this time to develop that, to have these debates, to raise questions like the one that Savni has just raised, because that is what is going to create an individual out of you. You don't want to be robots at the end of this course.
And I think in media, the more unique you are, the better for you. Like a lot of you are so worried about like how much money am I going to make when I get into journalism. We need journalists not only for writing in newspapers or for magazines. We need journalists when it comes to like again writing a show. Like if I'm writing a movie or I'm writing a show and it's based in reality, it's based like a Masan. Like a Masan based in Varanasi, talking about the caste system. I will need a journalist who has followed these hate crimes that have been happening in Varanasi, just to like get an idea of what's happening there, so that when I as a writer am basing a story there, I get a real perspective into these things. So there is so much scope, but this comes only because this Varanasi journalist knows that he knows Varanasi better than better than anybody else. So he's gone ahead and taken whatever is available to him and made that his forte, made that his strength. So whether you are from like Bombay, whether you are from anywhere in India, please do not think that, oh, I need to get out of where I am, only then I will be able to do better. If you know the place you're coming from, this is your forte, use it. Travel, because then it obviously gives you an idea of like, I only know Bombay, it's not going to help me, when I'm writing. So I need to see what's happening everywhere else. So look at you, don't try to be somebody else, and use what you think is your strength. I think that's very important. Be confident of it, because it's really going to help you. So yeah.
Thank you so much, Tunali and Kunal. Importance of putting things in perspective while giving facts 360 degree. How important it is in journalism. You have explained it in a way nobody else can, and how to create your own space in a depressing situation is something that students can definitely learn by looking at both of you. Thank you so much. I would now
Thank you for having us.
Nikita, Professor Nikita, to give the vote of thanks.
Thank you, Surya ma'am. I would first and foremost like to thank Tunali ma'am and Kunal sir for accepting our invitation and coming here and engaging with our students.
Pleasure.
Also, as Surya ma'am in the beginning of the session had said, Tunali ma'am is one of the most favorite visiting faculty of the student. As a student, I can vouch for that. She's taught me as well. I won't be wrong if I say in this session you have redefined journalism for the students. You have brought a fresh perspective for the students, and now they can look at journalism in a very different way. Thank you for that. As the day 2 ends, I would like to thank Manjula ma'am for giving us this platform. I would like to thank Roshan sir and Srinivas sir for their technical support. I would like to thank Surya ma'am for hosting this series and managing all the administrative work. And finally, our pillar of support, Sudha ma'am, for being a mentor and just being there and helping us with whatever we need. Thank you so much, and also the participants and students for being such a good crowd. Now I would like to hand over the floor to Surya ma'am.
Thank you so much, Nikita, for your words. I would now, with Manjula ma'am, your permission. Yes, ma'am.
A quick announcement I would like to make. We will put all the details for tomorrow's, which is the last session, on our Telegram group also. But do not forget to register for tomorrow's session, because it has more glamour in it. Today was more about being intelligent, I think. Tomorrow is intelligence with more of glamour. So you have Tahir, who has worked in so many, OTT platforms and web series. Like I was just looking at something like a movie called as Guilty, and 100 is a series which they have produced as a web series. There are so many ad campaigns they have produced. There are so many film that he has worked in. So I think that is the face of the screen space, how you create that kind of space for yourself, which is also very difficult. And just imagine, he must be like 40 now. He doesn't look like that when you see him tomorrow. But see the way he has branded himself. Okay, so this is specifically for people who want to look at production, at television, at films. So tomorrow's session will be very good with that. Plus, yeah, I can see Savni dancing. And plus, we have broadcast journalism, which is news anchoring to TV, to how exactly, Sohit will speak to you about, like how you heard Tunali and Kunal now. It's not only about looking good, it's about having something here to survive and sustain. So please understand, any field that you choose after the session gets over is going to be equally challenging. There is no glamour even in becoming an actor. If you all want to have additional sessions, we would like to do it on radio also, and also on actors. We have some very established actors who have passed out of our department, KC's, DMM. Okay. So that we will do it a little later, because we do not want you to be tired of so much of Gyan that, oh my God, this is so taxing. Okay. So yes, over to Surya.
Thank you so much, ma'am. That was a brief about tomorrow's sessions. I request all the participants to join 10 minutes prior to 3, so that we can start on time as we did today. And thank you so much for being a lovely audience and posting your questions. It is really interesting to read and listen to the answers. Thank you so much, speakers, once again. And with your permission, ma'am, I would like to end the session. Thank you. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you.
Tomorrow.